Okay. So I decided to split it up so we start here at 19. And so for number 19, this is no different. You still are using the ratios in this case. So we know that in this case, we have x and we have y given to us, which is the coordinate point. We're trying to find tan t. And so technically we don't really need much for this because they're giving us x as 5/6 and they're giving us y as square root of 11/6. And tan is y over x. In this case, square root of 11/6 over 5/6. And so if you remember the rule of thumb for dividing fractions, it's keep, change, flip. And so we're going to keep this one in position and we're going to flip this 5/6 to 6/5. And we're going to multiply instead of divide. And the result of that is that the 6 is going to cancel with this 6, leaving you a final answer of square root of 11/5. And that would be the final answer because it's tan, so it's OA. And in this case, the ratio y over x. Repeat the process for number 20. And so for number 20, again, you're given negative square root of 7/4 for x. Remember, this is x, comma, y as a coordinate pair. And they're giving you negative 3/4. So we have x, we have y, we have r. We know x is equal to negative square root of 7/4. We know y is equal to negative 3/4. And so if I have x and I have y, I need is r in this case. They want the ratio of cotan, so technically we don't even need to bother with that, because cotan is simply x over y. If that is true, negative square root of 7/4 divided by negative 3/4. What ends up happening is we go back to some basic fraction rules, which is just keep, change, flip. And so I'm going to multiply by negative 4/3. The 4's will cancel, the negatives will cancel, and you're left with square root of 7/3. And I believe for number 20, the answer choice should have been D, which is just that. Right, here's 21. Okay, this one you do have to find R because it's cosecant. They're asking you for cosecant, and we know that the ratio for that is the inverse of sine, which since sine is y over r, cosecant is going to be r over y. So we need r. They are giving us x at 5/7. They're giving us y at negative 2 square root of 6/7. And so r would have to be equal to the square root of 5/7 squared plus negative 2 square root of 6/7 squared. Okay, a little bit of math here. So r is equal to the square root of 25/49 plus, this will become 2 times 6, so it'll be 24/49, leaving us r is equal to the square root of 49/49, which should equal 1. Okay, so r is equal to 1. Again, since sine is y over r, this is r over y. Something is bugging me here, but let's see. So this will be 1 over, or maybe not, 1 over negative 2 square root of 6 divided by 7. And All right, we need to rationalize if we first keep change flip. Let's do that first, because remember this is the numerator up here, divided by this. This will become 7 over negative 2 square root of 6. And so we're going to multiply by square root of 6, top and bottom. This will leave you with 7 square root of 6 over 12, and yes, it's negative. And that's your answer for that one. That should be answer choice C for 21. Alright, excuse me. Okay. Let's look at 22. On this one, we're using the even and odd properties. Even and odd properties. And you kind of just really need to know the trigonometric circle for this, but let's take a gander at this. So we have the cotan of negative pi over 3. And so when we solve for this, obviously this would be 60 degrees, which it's negative cotan, so I have to be most likely in this quadrant. How I knew this was, for those of you following along, this is 180 over pi. The pi's will cancel, leaving you negative 60 degrees. So that means that I'm looking at 60 degrees sitting in here, 30 degrees sitting in here. This is R, this is X, this is Y. If that is the case, then X is 1. The hypotenuse is always the 2, and Y is always square root of 3. If I'm looking at cotan of negative 60 degrees, so cotan of this degree, ratio-wise, so if you remember, tan is y over x, cotan is going to be x over y. So x over y in our case will give us 1 over square root of 3, but we don't like that. I would have to change this by rationalizing. I end up with square root of 3 over 3. And because tan is only, because remember, tan, all, as in tan, is also positive here. These are the only two quadrants where tan is a plus. So whatever I get here has to be negative. So negative square root of 3 over 3 for this one. Alright, same thing goes for number 23 and 24. So if I'm looking at number 23, I have cosecant of negative pi over 6. Again, I take the negative pi over 6 and I convert it. 180 over pi, let's change it to degrees, so that cancels, and I end up with negative 30 degrees. Okay, so I'm going negative 30 degrees. This 30 degrees in here, here's your 90, here's your 60. If that is true, then this is R. R is always 2. Well, this is your X value sitting here. In this case, the X value is going to be square root of 3, and the Y value is going to be 1. So cosecant is the opposite of sine. Since sine is y over r, cosecant is r over y. So if r is 2 and my y is 1, then my final answer here would be negative 2. Again, all functions, here's sine, cosecant obviously being the inverse, So this answer choice has to be a -2, right? Because we're in the third quadrant. All right, let's look at 24. On 24, I have secant -pi/6. Remember, secant goes with cosine. The ratio for cosine is x/r, so therefore the ratio for secant is r/x. So step 1, convert this angle. This is -pi/6 times 180/pi. These cancel. 6 goes into 180, 30 degrees. So that means that I'm coming down from the x-axis, 30 degrees. Here's your 90, here's your 60. Again, r is 2, hypotenuse. Your x is 1, your x is square root of 3. Your y is 1. Okay. Now, if I want secant, just remember this is x, this is y. So if I want secant, I want r/x. So 2 over square root of 3. We know likey. Square root of 3 on the bottom, so we multiply by square root of 3 top and bottom to get 2 square root of 3 over 3. And next thing to consider, it's cosine. Cosine is positive here because remember, all students take calculus. So cosine is positive here, so this would be positive. Your answer choice for number 24 should have been B. All right. Number 25, 26, 27 are similar. The trick to these, and here's what I would suggest to you, so that you don't have confusion. I'll explain it in multiple ways, but it's so you don't have confusion. We're looking at sine of 10 pi over 3. If again, the ratio, so think ratio for this is y/r. We start with that. Second thing I would do is you can either convert this so this becomes in degree mode. So we know that this cancels with this. 3 goes into 180, 60 times, and 10 times 60 is 600 degrees. Now, that means that we know this goes at least one time around, right? So this is at least one round of 360. So if we're looking at the diagram, you know, we're starting one round of 360, another round at 90. So if I look at 360 and I look at 90, I'm down another quarter of turn. And then I'm going to do that yet again, another 180. So it's just over that. So if I take my calculator, as you will, you're going to start with 600, you're going to take away 360, which puts us at 240. Okay, and then I'm going to take away another 180. By taking away another 180, so I'm going from here to here, I'm still short 40 degrees, or 60 degrees. So this puts me at 60 degrees, so come in 60 degrees here, and there's your terminal side. So if this is 60, this is 30, that's 90, okay? And with that said, 30, 60, 90, again, the hypotenuse is the 2. The side opposite the 60 is always the square root of 3, and the 30, in this case, the 1, which means that x is 1, y is square root of 3, and r is equal to 2. Using the ratio, if I say, okay, then this is square root of 3 over 2, and also keep in mind sine is negative here, right? Because all sine and then trig and then cosine. So because we're in this quadrant, we have to say negative in this case. Now, final answer should be negative square root of 3 over 2, which should be answer choice A. Okay, now remember, you needed to complete the 60 degrees, which is what's left in here. Alright, let's look at 26. So for 26, you have tan. Tan of 21 pi over 4. Tan is y over x as a ratio, right? So the ratio for tan theta is y over x. Again, a strategy you can use. And by the way, just for the record, let me go back to 25. 10 pi over 3. You could just take 10 divided by 3. 3 goes into 10 3 times with a remainder of 1. So which is really pi over 3, right? If you convert this 180 over pi, convert it to degrees, this cancels, leaving you 60 degrees. That's the number you were looking for. But you should look at it, especially when you do the final, make sure that you're looking at it from all angles, okay? Okay, so for 26. Same difference for this one. If I divide, doing it the short way, 21 over 4, and 4 goes into 21 at least 5 times with a remainder of 1, so hence pi over 4 is the remainder, right? And I convert that, I know that's 45 degrees. That's not rocket science. Now, drawing it, I'm looking at 21 pi over 4 times 180 over pi. The pi's will cancel. 180 divided by 4 is 45 degrees, so this into this is 45 degrees, leaving you 21 times 45, which is 945 degrees. Now I know definitely 720 would be a number I would use, which basically means I'm subtracting 360 degrees twice. So 945 minus 720 leaves me a small balance of 225 degrees. So I can take away 180. If I take away another 180, that leaves me 45 degrees, which is probably the angle of reference that we're going to use. So here's the deal. I start at 0 and I start counting. 360, 720, 720 and 180 puts me at 900, leaving me 45 little degrees that I need to come back in here. Okay, and then since that's 45 degrees, we know that we have the y value here. The r value is square root of 2, 1 and 1. So technically, the tan of this is 1. 1 over 1. All right. Number 27. On number 27, you have the sine of 17 pi over 3. Alright, this time we'll do the shortcut. If that's the case, 3 goes into 17 at least 5 times, leaving me 2 pi over 3. Okay, I could convert this if I wanted to 180 over pi. Convert it to degrees. 3 goes into to 180 60 times. So this is a 120 degree angle, technically. So looking at the diagram, I always say draw the picture because it does help. So if I take 17 pi over 3 and I multiply it by 180 over pi. These cancel. 3 goes into 180 60 times. And 60 times 17 is 1,020 degrees. That's a lot of degrees. So if I multiply 360 times 3, I get 180, so it's a little bit bigger than what I hoped. So I'm going to subtract 360 here once and then twice. So if I take 1,020 and I take away 720, I'm left with 300 degrees. So you can already see where we're going, right? So 360 once, 360 twice, 90, 180, 270, 300-ish, leaving me 60 degrees in here. If I do that, this is 30, this is 90. Again, hypotenuse, so r is equal to 2. This is the square root of 3, and this is 1, which is x. This is y. Sine is negative here, so whatever you get, because you're in the third quadrant, has to be a negative. And your answer for this should be y over r, right? Because that's the ratio. So sine of y of theta is y over r, which is going to be square root of 3 over 2. However, negative, because sine is in this quadrant negative. All right. For numbers 28 and 29, which I'm going to stop after 28 and 29, actually I'll probably stop at 30. They're asking you to determine the period of y. So for 28, y equals 5 sine 7x minus pi over 2. And so for 28, the period should be 2 pi over 7. Because remember, the period is always sitting here in front of the x. Okay, you also remember that the period for sine is 2 pi, and we're dividing it by that number. Okay, for 29, 29 is a little weird, but you have y equals negative 3 sine of 4 pi x plus 2 pi. Okay, so again, sine, the period for sine is 2 pi. And we divided by this period, so I get 2 pi over 4 pi, I get 1/2. These both ask for period. Just remember the amplitude is the number in front of the function. Alright, and for number 30, determine the phase shift of the function. And you have y equals 3 sine 1/4 x minus pi over 4. Remember, the phase shift by formula is C over B. This is your A, this is your B, this is your C. And so for number 30, we're going to move pi units to the right. Because if I do C over B, I get pi over 4 over 1 over 4 which gives you pi over 4 times 4 over 1, hence pi. And also consider the fact that that's a negative, which is indicating you're going to the right. One more thing, going back to the amplitude, remember the amplitude A is equal to, it's actually the absolute value of A for the amplitude. So it's the absolute value of 5 is 5, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, and so on. Okay? I'll do 31 in here, and then I will move on to a new video, just to be able to get this to record properly. So for this one, same thing. Remember, it's C over B. You have y equals 1/2 sine of pi x plus 5. So labeling these, this is A, this is B, this is C. And so C over B gives me 5 over pi. And because that's a plus, you're going to move to the left. So 5 over pi units, left. I'm stopping the video here, and I will record the rest in the next video.